Hi everyone, and welcome to this session on building a leadership team that runs without you. I'm Ben Wright, founder and Chief Innovation Officer at Mello. Now, if you don't know Mello, we're a sell-side broker working exclusively with financial planning firms. We've sold over 50 firms with 50 more in the pipeline as we speak. So it's fair to say we know what makes a business run well and what buyers want. Now, I'm a financial advisor by trade, and I've been working in and around financial advice for over 20 years. In more recent times, I've focused primarily on strategy and leadership in financial planning businesses. And I'm really pleased to be joined today by Gaynor Rigby, our Chief Operating Officer. Over to you, Gaynor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gaynor, COO at Mello, and a little bit of background on me. My career started in North America, working for an entrepreneurial coaching organization called Strategic Coach, which is run by Dan Sullivan and his wife, Bab Smith. And I'm going to talk about a few of the things that I learned whilst at Strategic Coach a little bit later on in the presentation. More recently, I was managing partner at Equilibrium, which is a wealth management business based in the northwest of England. On my watch, or in my tenure, we went from 120 million of assets under management to over $1 billion. We launched our model portfolios as actual funds, and one that I'm very proud of is we were a Times Top 100, Top 10 companies to work for the last 5 years that I was there, and various other accolades and things as well. So, I'm excited to share some of my things that I've learned along the way.
Now, at Mello, we spend a lot of time working with financial planning firm owners who are preparing for their exit. Now, for many, that exit isn't immediate. And I would say some of the better firms think about their exit maybe 2, 3, 5, or even 10 years in advance. And for those firms, they're generally looking to grow and increase their valuation in the interim. Now, when we ask owners what's holding them back, we tend to get 3 common answers. First one is technology, or AI now as well, so use of technology. The second is processes are inefficient. And the third is maybe not got the right people or not using people the correct way. Now, once we've done our deep dive within a firm, the main challenges we tend to see across most businesses are around strategy and leadership. So whether that's an owner who just can't let go of anything, a team that doesn't understand the big picture, or just the wrong people being promoted into the wrong jobs. Well, today, Gaynor and I are going to share what we've learned from a collective 40 plus years of working with leadership teams. In particular, how you move from being at the centre of everything as an owner to building a leadership team that can take ownership, make decisions, and move the business forward without having to funnel everything back through you. Importantly, we're going to cover what that looks like in practice, where dependency tends to hide, and how to start designing a business that's more resilient, more scalable, and ultimately more valuable. Now, today's session does qualify for structured CPD, and here are your learning objectives. Now, importantly, every business is different. So today is about giving you frameworks and practical ways of thinking rather than a kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. If you want to talk about your business specifically, then do get in touch. We'd be happy to have that chat. With all that said, let's get into it. Now, Gaynor, we use the concept of unique ability quite a lot with owners and leadership teams. Do you want to start us off by talking through what unique ability means?
Yes, so this is a concept that I learned from Strategic Coach. And if you're interested in finding out more about it and how to kind of go through a process to figure out your own, you can go onto their website. They've got a book and audio tape that you can purchase. But essentially, what the premise is that we've all got a unique ability. We've all got the thing that we do that gives us energy, that makes us feel like pumped up, that you could spend forever doing. And if you build an organization where people are spending the majority of their time in their area of unique ability, that you become greater than the sum of your parts. So the easiest way to think about it is like you've got an onion and you're trying to peel away the layers so that you get to the core of what it is that you're great at. So the first thing to do is to think or consider all of the stuff that you hate to do. These are the easy things to go, well, this is not my area of unique ability. It's the stuff you suck at, you hate, you're rubbish at, that it takes your energy away. It's the thing on your to-do list that you're going to keep leaving till the last because you know you don't like to do it. And it's to strip those away. So when you're starting to consider building your team, you would look at the things that you dislike to do or that are not your unique ability. And those are the things that you potentially would bring in someone else to do whose unique ability is those things. So you're taking away the stuff that you're, as the slide says, you're incompetent at, that you're competent at. Those are the easy ones. It gets trickier to get to the nub of unique ability when you look at your excellent activities and your unique ability activities. So your excellent activities are things that you actually are really good at, but they just don't quite float your boat and they don't give you that energy back. And then you get, if you can, then the nub of it is your unique ability activities. So if you're stripping away all of the stuff that you're not great at, then what you're left with, or hopefully, is you get to spend the majority of your time doing the things that you're actually really good at, and hopefully, ultimately, the things that are your unique ability. That's the
I
simple
found this.
version. Go on,
Sorry,
sorry,
Gaynor.
Ben.
Yeah, I found this concept really fascinating because when I started my kind of leadership journey, or started being kind of trained to become a manager or leader all those years ago, there was a real focus on understanding your weak spots and then fixing them. So it was all about, if you absolutely sucked at something, put loads of time and effort into trying to become better at that thing that you were rubbish at.
Yeah.
And I always thought that you ended up putting a disproportionate amount of time into trying to get yourself out from being rubbish at something to being mediocre at it.
Yeah.
And this concept it makes so much more sense to me if you can lean into the stuff that you're passionate about, that you're really good at, and it leaves you buzzing. Because if that kind of that feeling is transferable. So if one person's on fire, it spreads throughout the rest of the team, and you don't kind of get that trudgery.
Yeah. So Dan Sullivan's got a saying where he's like, if you work on your weaknesses, you end up with really good weaknesses. So the idea is, obviously, there's some housekeeping stuff here where you're like, there's stuff that you got to do. But ultimately, it's like putting your energy and your focus and your time and your passion into the things that you're already great at. The curve on that is, far steeper. And if you kind of have that in mind as you're building your organization, as you're building out your team, as you're putting people into roles, is to put the right people in the right places where their unique ability really just gets to flourish and get bigger. And like you said, that energy then becomes contagious, which is how you ultimately become bigger than the sum of your parts.
What should people do, Gaynor, if they don't know? They literally are not sure about this. And we have had an example where somebody thought their unique ability was one thing, but it's just because they've been doing it for the last 10 years. And actually, through a process of trying new things, they found out that that was not their unique ability. They'd just been kind of conditioned to do it. So is there any kind of practical tips for someone who's not sure as to where to start?
Yeah, so the book actually gives you like a better, more comprehensive way of going about it. But there's a few things. One is they call it an activity inventory. So over the period of a week or two, you write down in your day all of the elements that you're doing so that you can see the stuff that you hate, that you dislike, that isn't giving you a buzz. And the other thing, which is a little uncomfortable, particularly as a Brit, is that you send out a letter or a request to people in your life, so co-workers, maybe even family members or friends, and you ask them what they think your unique ability is. When you probably need about 8 to 10. When you get that back, and there are themes, you'll start to see the themes of what people see in you as your areas of unique ability. So your unique ability is like a combination of like practical things that maybe you do, and then who you are in combination with that. So yeah, a little uncomfortable as a Brit. The Americans don't mind sending out those letters. They love a pat on the back. But it's hard sometimes for you to see it in yourself. It's what other people see in you in combination. So that's what I would suggest. I guess I would say is get the book and follow it from there because it's all laid out.
Yeah, I've done a couple of 360 I've done a few 360 surveys over the years, and the first one was I was mortified by like reading all the comments that people have put, and I think to be fair, on that first one I sulked afterwards I was
Oh,
like, I just literally took it really to heart and was like, oh man, I'm not as good as I thought I was. And
well, the thing about unique ability is in the letter, you're not asking for people to critique you. You're asking for people to tell you what they think is great about you and makes you unique. So there should only be positives. So the uncomfortableness is not that you're being told something bad, it's that people are saying nice things.
I prefer that over the 360 survey. Let's go with
Yes.
that one. Nice.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry, Dana, carry on.
No. So the other tool that we use, which is really useful, is called Kolbe. Again, I'm going to give you an overview. They have a website, Kolbe, that you can go to and get more information. And they do have some books as well. But essentially, this is a great tool to put language around how someone is wired. So it kind of can support the unique ability exercise in figuring out what that is, but it also helps you identify and get a common language with people that you're working with about how you are wired to do things. So what Colby doesn't measure is how smart you are, and what it doesn't measure is your personality, and what it doesn't measure is your emotional intelligence or any of those things. It is literally if you are motivated to do something to almost, philosophically get from A to B, what is the route that you take to get there? So, for example, there you will know people who are the list takers, they are the checker offers. You know the people who are the last minuters, sleep, seat of their pants people. This profile gives you the language to identify the combination of traits that people have that tells you what they're more likely to or what they will likely to do. So there are 4 modes, and the big thing about Colby is there is not a right or a wrong answer. There is not a better profile or a worse profile. It is just you, and what you want is for you to be in a working environment where you get to be you more than not. So it's putting the round peg in the round hole. When you're hiring, again, it's getting the right shape peg in the right shape hole for the role that you're looking for. So, very briefly, there are 4 modes. You've got a fact find mode, which is essentially about getting information, and you get a score between 0 and 10. A higher number doesn't mean better. So you've got to imagine it almost like you've got energy to expend in this area. The lower the number, you've got less energy. The bigger the number, you've got more energy. So in fact find, the bigger the number, the more energy, the more capacity you have for information and detail. Shorter the number, smaller the number, the less capacity or interest that you've got. The next one is the blue, and that is follow through, and that is about sequencing and patterns and following the steps and doing it in a prescriptive way over and over again. The bigger the number, the more you are comfortable doing that. The shorter the number, the more you're going to bop around. The next one is quick start. So that is last minute, ad lib, make it up. Kind of the comfortable in the last minute uncomfortableness versus a smaller number, which is you want things kind of grounded. You kind of want to know what's going on. You like to, know ahead of time. And the last one is implementer, which doesn't mean to implement. It's almost like how you see concepts. Do you see them in your head? So can you envision them? Or is it something where you would need to like draw it out, write it out? And again, there's a number. So in an organization, there are certain roles that lend themselves better to a certain type of person. So if you have got I would say a traditional power planning role, which is there are steps that need to be followed. You need everybody to go through those steps, doing it a certain way. You need that box ticked. You need that information put onto your CRM. There is a profile that fits better with that. And therefore, when you're hiring, if you hire in for that type of person, the level of success and their kind of sense of accomplishment in that role is going to be bigger than putting in somebody who makes it up, does it different every time, is last minute, isn't really that bothered about the detail, doesn't ask the question. You're just asking someone to not be who they are within the role. So a power planner role would be a fact finder follow through. So that's the red and the blue. more traditional role, or more, I would say, traditionally sales types of roles, have people that are longer in quick start because it's in the moment, last minute. And then anybody who I would say is more of a business owner. So come at it from a business owner, not necessarily come at it from being an advisor, but you're running a business, tends to have a longer quick start. They are a little bit more multiple hats, can stop and start. And it isn't that anyone can't do those things. It is how much energy it takes and when you feel like you've run out of that energy. So it's when you start to just be like, I'm done. Like I've not got anything left in the tank. Somebody, I remember at Strategic Coach, one of the clients there said, I used to think everybody was like me, just not as good. And it sounds arrogant, but what they meant was they just thought everyone in the world, we were all the same. Like we all thought the same, we all did things the same, and therefore anyone not like him was not as good. The other thing that happens is we hire, well, there's a tendency to hire people like us to do the things that we don't want to do, and then we're then we're surprised when that person doesn't do them either. So you obviously you can see in yourself someone, you can see in someone else all your traits and you think that's great, but if they're wired like you, they're not going to want to do the things that you don't want to do either. So it's a great tool when it comes to hiring, because there are certain business profiles within your business that are going to fit a certain way. There's also the luxury of, if your business starts to get bigger and there's not such defined roles, you can find a really great candidate and a person, and you can create a role that fits how they're wired. So, for example, at Equilibrium, our power planners, client managers, were a traditional fact finder, follow through type of person. A lot of information, you follow the steps, you follow the system, less about the last minute ad libbiness. But we had some team members that did have more of a capacity for the last minute pivot change situation. And we put them into our new client onboarding, because there were multiple hats with lots of different things. There was last minute, you were trying to win a client, and their profile fit better for that part of that kind of department and role. So we got to a size and a critical number where you could kind of like carve that out and go, actually, we can make a role here that would be perfect for this person, because we think they've got all the other traits, but now let's like develop a role that will allow them to succeed. Trickier to do when you're smaller and when you're growing, your first few hires, but just to understand, it's like we're all wired a little bit differently, and there are certain wirings that fit better for certain roles.
So thinking about building a leadership team that runs without you, Gaynor,
Yes.
I'm assuming that one of the first steps would be, if you have people in your business who are taking a lead role or you think could take a lead role, to work out what is their personality profile type, Kolbe, bottom line, whatever it is you want to do it.
Yeah.
And then at least you'll know quite quickly where they might find the best kind of fit in that leadership structure.
Yeah, at a leadership level, there is scope for probably more variety, but it's understanding then who you're working with and what each other's skills and talents are, and understanding to communicate in a way that is respectful of one another. So there are times when I remember, working with someone who was very much like wanting to know what the steps were, what was the process, I was less inclined that way, but I knew that was how that person was processing the project and what we were going to do. So there's a patience there of going, they've got those questions to ask, or they want to map it out that way. Let's do that, because that's how they're going to be able to go away and do the best job, versus being impatient in the, well, you just figure it out. Well, you just figure that out as you're going along. And like, well, certain personalities don't like to figure it out as they're going along. They want to know what it is before they've set off. I like to ask a lot of questions. Like I like a lot of information. And when I was at Strategic Coach, the owner of the business, Babs, actually didn't like a lot of information. She had a very long quick start. And I remember going in to pitch new ideas, and I would start with all of this data that I had gathered, and I found this here, and I've done this analysis, and and then I would get to the conclusion. And then finally one day she said to me, she's like, you know what? She's like, start with the conclusion, then back it up with some facts. And at the point that I've got enough as what I need to make a decision, I will tell you. So I flipped it around. So I started with the conclusion, and more often than not, I wasn't barely into my facts that I'd gone away and done all this research on. She was like, yeah, got it. It's fine. Off you go. So just little things like that versus, me being in a meeting and regurgitating all this stuff and she's losing the will to live because she's got bored. And then me feeling we flip it the other way and I'm offended that she's not taking seriously all of this work that I've done. It's like, well, you know each other. It's like, and ultimately you're just trying to get to the best end result anyway. So, yeah. Quick starts again, they love color and sparkle and things. So there's ways to communicate with different types of people in your business that will get the best out of them.
I think sometimes it's about just having a common understanding and a common language to talk about. And,
yes.
Especially if you're the owner of the business, if you're the leader of the business, you'll have different people working around you. If they know that you like to receive information in a certain way, it just makes the process so much easier, right? As you talked about with Babs there, if what the person wants is give me the facts in 60 seconds and I'll make a call, then there's no point presenting it that way. If you've got someone who really wants the detail behind it first, whatever you do, don't go in as a 60-second pitch. You need to provide the detail in the right way, shape or form. So it's often that sometimes I kind of think of it as that knowledge breeds understanding.
Yes.
So if you know how somebody operates, you're much more likely to be okay with that rather than being like, oh, they're rubbish. They take ages to make decisions.
Yeah, or you get impatient or whatever. So it's like when you understand it, it's like there's an element of giving everyone the space to do it the way that they are going to be able to produce their best result. So the slide here, there's quite a lot of information, but when we send it out, I think there's a bit more, detail for people to read. And this other one's got more information about what the fact find area, the follow through, the quick start and the implementer, and just a description as if your numbers are in different areas, what that might mean in how you turn up. So I don't need to go through all of that, but if you're getting the slides, it's good to read. Fact find
hit pause and read that if you want to read it anymore.
Exactly. Okay.
Cool.
So another piece of the puzzle, and I'm going to pass it over to Ben because he's our expert on this. So the other piece of the puzzle is these are like 3 tools that we use that help. You're not doing this to pigeonhole people and you're not doing it to label people. You're doing it so that you can understand who it is that you're working with, so that you're putting people into the best position for them to be successful. And so another tool that we've got is called the GC index, and I'm going to pass that over to Ben because he's our resident expert.
I'm the resident GCologist.
There you go.
So when we started Mellow, we actually used this tool to work out how we all operated best together, and we found it so useful that we became qualified to now use it with the firms that we work with. And it's similar to Kolbe, slightly different slant on it. I would say that all of these things are a little bit open to interpretation, so pick the one that works for you, but just get everyone using the same one. The GC index was created, a bit of a scientific piece of work that was commissioned by industry, and I think you said it earlier on, Gaynor, that we tend to gravitate towards people like ourselves. It's an inbuilt thing of humanity is that we like people like us. And the reason that the GC index came into being was that some very large corporate businesses who were run by very large corporate types were trying to reinvent themselves. And they were hiring people who would come in and look at a new way at the business, maybe kind of change the game as to where they were operating. But the problem was that the corporate types were hiring corporate types who couldn't do any game changing. So they went out to academia and said, can you find us the key characteristics of somebody that is like a new thinker, ideas led, can do something different? So the team did a bit of work around that and found there are actually kind of 5 overall personality profiles, or proclivities as they're called in the GC index. Not just the game changer, but there's also a strategist, an implementer, a playmaker, and a polisher, who, a bit like Kolbe, it's how people approach a situation. So for example, I'm a strategist game changer. They're my 2 highest proclivities. So when I approach a new situation, I like to understand why we're doing this, what's the forward picture, where are we trying to get to, and then I go into kind of ideas mode, generate loads of ideas, how would they fit into the plan. It's all about that ideation, intellectual creation phase. But when it comes down to the implementation of stuff, I'm a lot weaker in those areas. And whilst I can do it, I don't find it great fun. Whereas there are other people who are really strong kind of implementers and they love getting stuff done, ticking things off lists, kind of moving projects forwards. So I think, again, when you're looking at hiring, especially hiring a leadership team, the thing is to hire for difference, not for similarity. You don't want like an army of yous. You've got you. So what you want now is what would complement your skill set. So if you're like the ideas guy, you probably don't want that many more ideas people because you've already got that. Or if you're the person that gets things done, then that's cool, but you probably need some ideas from somewhere. So maybe you're going to kind of hire the ideas type of person. So really, again, it's thinking about teams are often best when they're diverse, when they've got a range of experiences, a range of backgrounds, and a range of different proclivities or ways they like to operate. So GC Index is an alternative to Kolbe that I would well recommend people have a look at.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so moving on. So if we've got how we've identified and a common language that we've got around who people are and how they like to do things, and we have an appreciation and an understanding of when we might deploy someone or give them the lead in something because of how they're wired to do it, then it's like, well, what is all of the stuff in your business and how do you start to figure out who's in charge of what and then how to build that structure? So the next thing I would suggest is, and you do this at any size, it's just that it makes sense. So you basically, all the areas of a business. So there's marketing, there's finance, there's HR, there is sales, there's compliance, there's a few that you might add on if you're a larger organization, but essentially there's some pretty standard areas of business for sales. And then what you want to do is you want to write down who currently is responsible for that area. Now, if you're small, your name's probably going to be in all of those boxes. If you're bigger, then you might have your name in some of those boxes and you're going to have other team members whose names are in those boxes. So first of all, I think the concept, the premise is that there are multiple areas within a business. And in order to grow a business and be successful, you've got to focus on all of these different areas. So we've got, somewhat of a list here. Then you write down who's responsible. The next thing, and we haven't kind of written it there, is like, what might be the metric or the KPI that you would look at to know whether that department is functioning well? So you've got, for example, if it's sales and you're the person in charge of it, is like, how do you know sales is going well? So if you have got a goal at the start of the year and you need to win 10 million of assets under management, is as you're going through is like, where are you relative to that goal? So what is the metric that each of these departments might have that if you looked at it, you would go, this is a really well-run business because we're hitting all of these metrics versus going, ooh, that's needs maybe a little bit more of attention over there. So a couple of reasons to do this. One is to understand that all of the multiple components it takes to run a business. Two, for you to realize why, if you're especially on the small side, why it feels stressful and why you're wondering which hat that you're putting on every day is like, where am I at? And then also for you to start, I think, a visual of what all the areas are and maybe the things that you really, really dislike to do is going to kind of give you a steer as to who you hire in next or who you hire in when, or at what point are you going to hire in the expert, the person who can take this area and kind of really take it and run with it.
Yeah, we found from something that's interesting is if it is a very small business who is looking to potentially looking to grow with here, it's great to have it visually listed out because quite often as an entrepreneur you are wearing multiple hats and the one that you don't like often gets left.
Yeah.
So by saying having it written down that this is one of my jobs, it just
Yes.
kind of brings it to the fore a little bit. And
Yeah.
something we've done really effectively, actually, with firms looking to scale, is to get them to write the job specs for each of the roles.
Hmm.
So, what's a marketing manager look like? What's a sales manager look like? What's an operations manager
Yeah.
look like? So you describe what you do, but turn it into a job description. And that way around, you've got a real clear, this is how each of those roles functions. It brings in that kind of the KPIs and stuff.
Hmm.
And you'll be able to see very quickly which are the easiest to hire, which will be the most impact to hire in fast. And then when you do look to hire, the job description's already written. So it's really
Yeah.
clear what you're telling somebody they're taking on from you. Because again, in a smaller business, it can be quite easy to kind of bring somebody in and be like, cool, well, you can just do marketing now.
Yeah.
And you lose track of what's happening. They don't know what's happening. You haven't given them a brief. They don't know what the role profile is. So
Yeah.
having it all written out, it just makes that transition a whole lot easier as and when it can happen.
Do you think that there are, or what areas would you say, if you were looking at this list, that in a very small business, that people probably don't even spend any time doing or spend so little time doing? Do you think there's a couple there that get missed?
So I would say that if we're looking at financial planning businesses, which that's the world that we're operating in, small businesses tend not to really think about marketing a great deal.
I would agree.
So there's an occasional LinkedIn post, or you turn up at an event
Yeah.
somewhere. I've seen countless newsletters which have been started and then stopped after issue one.
Yeah.
So it tends to get put to one side because the most pressing matter is, how do I write this business? How do I get it over the line? How do I make sure it kind of passes compliance?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, finance is another one which gets missed all the time. And I'm constantly amazed by talking to firms, it's probably smaller firms this is, who don't know what their income should be and how much has been paid and how much hasn't been paid. They don't do any kind of income rec. They just assume that they keep filling the pipeline up and it will fall out the back of
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So there's a lack around that side of things. And I suppose the thing we see time and time again is a lack of strategy. Where am I heading? What am I trying to achieve? What's the goal behind all this stuff? It's really easy to kind of move into like we'll do like yesterday but a little bit better. But where are you heading? What's this kind of onwards way of operating? So I suppose on this particular list you could think it's like marketing, sales, ops, a combo of the two, of the three rather, but it's about taking that time out to be clear about where you're heading and also making sure that your team understand that as well. We've seen
Yeah.
countless issues where the team haven't been told what the direction of travel is, so they're potentially operating in what they think is the right way, but it's going against where the owner's trying to get to.
Yeah. On this list, I would say the three that I would choose is one is marketing. Um, Now, if you've got a pretty like slow and steady business and you're quite happy with it running like that, then probably, probably what you're doing is sufficient. But if you've got any kind of like growth plan for your business, at some point, marketing's going to have to take the top slot because that is how it's, sales and marketing, but marketing first because the sales drop in after that. You're going to need to figure out how to get new clients in. So I would say marketing. Finance, yes, because a lot of it gets held in people's heads and they have some kind of like intuition, sixth sense of whether things are fine or not. But there is a point where those numbers get too big. It's, things going wrong or not working quite right, the impact starts to get really big. So finance is another one. And I think people can get a weirdly be a little intimidated by finance. You don't need to be. It's like it's literally it's numbers in, it's numbers out, it's in and out. It's that simple. And get them to do it in a way that makes sense to you. You don't have to be intimidated by accountants. And then the other one for me is the HR people bit. And I would, add on slash culture because, when you're small and you're sat all together, maybe you're in an office together, there is an inherent culture by osmosis. And as soon as you start to get the numbers start to get a little bigger, you need a way to communicate what this business is and how you do things and culturally how it is. And so if you can't do that bit, then that's where you start to get like fraying around the edges where like you've hired someone and they're not quite right and things like that. So that's another one. And again, another one that feels kind of a little bit scary, especially in this day and age. Is like there is a point where like there are rules to be followed. We do have to like do things a certain way for everyone's safety. And there is a culture element to it as well, which is allows everyone to kind of like understand how you want your business to be run and what is important. So that was my little sidebar there.
I think having writing down your culture somewhere, so making
Yeah.
it clear what it is, because it's okay, like especially when you've got maybe two, three, four people in the business, it's kind of like whatever the person in charge says, you just do that. But
Yeah.
then as you start to get bigger, your personalities come in. There's implied culture because you've seen something, then you assume that that's the way to go. And we do quite a bit of work with firms on mission, vision, and then their
Yeah.
values.
I'm
So
actually going to
what's kind of
skip ahead
important
to
to
that.
them?
I'm going to skip ahead,
Oh,
everybody. Blink, because here we go. We've put it further down. So we'll jump to here, seeing as well, that's how we've ended up here. So as you were saying, Ben, it's like it is being clear on what your vision and your mission is. Now I'm going to ask the $6 million question. What is the difference between a vision and a mission?
oh, you want me to answer that one?
Yes, please.
Excellent. So the way that we talk about it with firms is the vision is your ideal future state of the world. So I would like a world that looks like this. And your mission is what you're going to do to make that vision come into reality. So that's the way that I would do it. Vision is what's the world that you want, and mission is how can you make that world happen. What I would say is, because I've done loads of work looking around this, not all companies follow that formula. Some have a vision statement only, some have a mission statement only, some have vision and mission as a single statement. But it's kind of like, what's your intent? Where are you heading, and why are you heading there?
And then sitting underneath that, you kind of got your values, which is the 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 character and the personality of the business in terms of what you're saying is important and how you want to function is maybe how I would describe it. Have you got a better description?
Yeah, the values are the things that most firms that we have gone into and done work with have said, oh yeah, we've got values. And I say, what are they? And no one can tell me.
Yeah.
Because they've brainstormed some words, they've stuck them on a poster somewhere, and fair enough. So what I would say values are, the values give your team a clear indication of how they should act in situations. So you might have a value of honesty. So if your value is honesty, and you're clear about that through all elements of the business, then what should happen is when one of your team members approaches a situation where they could make two choices, they'll choose the honest choice, because that is a fundamental, that is what we believe in as an organization, that is the way to operate.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say values, that it's much more than putting like words on a poster. It's
Yes.
thinking about how do we embed these in the firm. And I was with a firm last week who did an amazing job on this. So all of the performance and recognition now features values.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of the bonus, part of the appraisal structure, part of the objectives, it's like, how has this value contributed towards the work that you have done? And since they've done that, they've had an uplift in their internal net promoter score quite
Yeah.
considerably among the staff. And they've had brilliant feedback that it's easier now to make decisions because they just look at the values and then make the right decision according to that. So when we teach this out to firms, we always start with the values first. What are the cornerstones? What are the things that are important to the firm? And then once you've kind of got those, this is how we behave, then we move into the vision and then come back to the mission as to how we go about doing things.
So depending on the size of your organization, one of the things around values is either you are just bringing them up all the time in conversation. So as in like you are demonstrating to your team how, we believe this, so I did this. This is our core value of ours, so I did this. If you get a little bigger, that can be trickier. So what we did at Equilibrium was we had core values, and we chose one each quarter throughout the year to focus on. So not just like, okay, everybody, like it's about this. We tried to come up with like, I don't want to say a game, but like a movement or a momentum around it that we measured and you made fun and everybody got to engage in. So, for example, one of the things at Equilibrium was simplicity. And so we're very aware that, you know, within the industry, whatever else, things can be overcomplicated. You may have internal steps and systems and workflows that worked before. And so we're like, okay, guys, this quarter, we want one suggestion from everybody about something that we could do in the business that we could make way simpler, easier and simpler. And so over the quarter, we, you know, asked for feedback. We took all the suggestions, the stuff that we could do, we implemented. So we were, you know, workflows, lots of things like that, just even how we communicated to clients, documentation. And then the game was that if everybody contributed one, or we got however number we would, that at the end of the quarter, we would have some kind of like fun celebration. So, I mean, a little bit cheesy, sure, but like it engaged everybody. But you also, we got on a cycle within the business. Every 12 months, we were going back and we were looking at how do we make this simpler? How do we make this easier? Even, you know, bringing in tech, taking stuff out. Why do we even do that anymore? It doesn't make sense. Like all of that was on some kind of rotation. So there are ways to do it when you're bigger, and there are ways to embed it on a far simpler version if there's, you know, a handful of you in an office. So I'm a big fan of values. Again, you mentioned it with the firm that you were talking about during COVID. Having our core values that everyone understood made decision making in that environment like really very easy. Like you could go quick with what you had to decide, especially during COVID when there was so much to, you know, coming at you to decide. It was to do with clients, it was to do with team, you know, lots of decisions to be made. You just ran it through the core values and you're like, right, this is one of our core values. What is it? How do we navigate this? All right, well, this is what we do. So
I think simple is a great example actually of, because people think core values have to be like honest or open, or and I think simple is a great one because it's like just keep it simple. What's the easiest way of doing this particular exercise? And by having that as a core value, people will approach situations and think, right, what's the easiest way of doing this?
yeah,
And it just breeds that culture throughout. I was just going to say again, because we're focusing on kind of leadership teams here, when you want a team that will run without you, or at least run with minimal input from you, they have to understand where
they
you're
do.
going.
Yes,
They have to understand where you're going. So
correct.
you could have a very minimal vision, mission, or at least an end point, somewhere where you're heading towards, but they need to have that North Star. And I think if you know we're heading over there and these are the things we won't compromise on, these are our values in getting there,
Correct.
that will give them the power to be able to start making good decisions to help you move towards your goal. That where you find challenges is if there is no strategy, there's no end point, there's no
Yeah.
target to reach towards, because then it's like, well, every decision has to be questioned about whether it's a good idea or not. Whereas if you know where you're heading, does this get us closer to that or further away? And the decision's basically made for you.
And also, if you've got how you're going to, or how you're going to conduct yourself, or how you're going to make those decisions, that's what everyone aligns to. It doesn't have to go back to that one person, which
Yeah.
is what we're talking about here. Is like, how do you take the one person out, that linchpin? Because it doesn't become a debate then of like, well, that's not what I would do, or well, I would do it this way. It's like, actually, this is how we do this in this business. This is how we navigate these things. Here are our core values. It aligns to one of these. This is how we do it. It can remove a level of, well, that's on, I personally think is like, no. You've already figured that bit out because you've
And
got the core values.
I would say that delegating is a challenge that we see over and over again. Is that certainly in entrepreneurial firms where the owner's still the operator in the business as well. There's a
Mhm.
lot of kind of keeping it to themselves and like, no, I'm taking everything has to come through me. If
Yeah.
you want new printer ink, I'll have to sign it off. It's all can
Yeah.
be quite insular, and there is a way to start to delegate, but make sure that you understand. And I wonder if we go back to
We
structuring for
do. So
accountability
we're
again,
going to
that's a good time
flip.
to move into that one.
It is. So, well, that's the structure. We are bopping around here, guys. Here we go. Delegation. So, we've got, so these principles, there's kind of a couple of elements, and the second slide is actually the one that had the most impact on me when I was learning how to delegate, because also delegation is not easy. Doing delegation well is difficult. And if you are someone who takes great pride in how your business has been run and everything has come through you, and maybe you're even a little bit of a control freak, it is hard to delegate. So let's just put that out there. It is not a easy, I just pass it off and you at the center of the universe. It can be quite, can be a challenge to do it well. And so even just having that in your head, I'm like, this is going to be hard for me to like peel these things away from me is an important like mental thing to have in mind. So 5 key steps to effective delegation. One is you got to delegate to the right person. I know that seems simple, but like there's no point giving something to the wrong person or asking them even for them to convey to for them to move on. It's like pick the right person for
Just on
starters.
that, Gainer, before you move on, I was with a firm yesterday, that exact problem. So I'm going to delegate, and the person that's got some time to do it is this person, completely the wrong person for the job.
Yeah.
But they were given the job because they got less on than the other person who was the
Yeah.
right person for the job. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So one, pick the right person. Two, be clear about what it is that you are asking the person to do. And I know that seems simple, but there's like, can you let me think of an example. Can you take care of this? Well, what does that mean? Does that mean like getting the information? Does that mean, spending the money? Does that mean like what is it that you actually want them to do? Which requires a little moment before you send it out to the universe of whomever's available to do it. It's like you got to think about what it is that you want to have happen. Then the next one is a time frame. So we've all got our little to-do list that we're shuffling around in our heads all the time about what the priority is. And if you don't convey that, then it may not have made it onto someone's priority list. Meanwhile, you're waiting for it to happen. So again, it's who are you giving it to? What is it that you actually want to have happen? And on what time frame? Is it urgent? Is it in the next couple of weeks? It's not urgent, is not a time frame because that still is ambiguous. By the end of the week, by the end of next week, when can you get this done? It's kind of important. The person goes, well, I'm really busy right now. Can it be at the end of the, like, that's the dialogue that you want around it, just to get everyone on the same page. Determine the team's level of authority. Again, this goes back to what it is that you're looking for. So it's like, who are you giving it to and what are you saying? How far can they go in getting this done for you? You got to be really clear about that. Again, one, so people don't step beyond what you feel they're capable of, but also so that they are not playing it small and not stepping up and doing it. So that's another thing that has to have happen. There's often miscommunication it's a miscommunication. People don't want to like your employees don't want to necessarily overstep. You're waiting for them to step up. It's a conversation. And then the last one is to track progress and be available. So there's likely to be, especially when you're doing it in the beginning, people are going to have questions. You need to be available to at least answer some of the questions. That becomes a process. And also, do you want to know along the way if it's something bigger? When do you need to know what's going on? It all comes back to what is the result and what do you want to know is going on. Now, this bit is kind of my favorite bit. I found this very, very useful. So the level up delegation. So level one, if you are delegating and maybe they're new to the team and it's beyond their job, there are like ways for you to get comfortable delegating to somebody so that you trust that they are handling it the way that you would handle it. And also so that they don't get given something too soon when they've not got the skills to take care of it either. So level one, basically, I'm asking you to do something, go away, get me some information and come back. Basically, they're doing nothing else but just getting info for you. Level two is go away, get the information. I want you to handle it, but I need you to tell me what you're doing as you're going along. So I'm going to call this client back. And then I'm going to say this on the phone, and then you would get to say, well, make sure you say this, but don't say that, and da, da, da. And then it's like, well, I called and they didn't answer, so I left a message. Like you're getting updates as you go. Level three, handle it, and then just tell me that you've taken care of it. So You ask them to figure something out, you call the client, the person goes, however many times they called the client, however many times they left the voicemail, however many times they sent the email. You don't need to know any of that. All you need to know is I asked you to contact blah blah blah, get that sorted. The person comes back to you, goes, I did it. It's done. Tick. Because you get to take that off your mental load. And then the fourth one is you give it to the person and you assume it's taken care of. You've got a rapport with them, they're at a level, they have the responsibility and authority, and you just know that they will have done what you asked them to do. You don't need the I did it bit back. So I found this very useful when you grow in a team, especially when you're kind of on the smaller side and you kind of knew everything that was going on. So there's that bit of control freakness to you, is you're also kind of assessing the people that you're delegating to as you go. Is like, are they doing it the way that I would? Are they handling it the way that have they thought about those things? But you kind of, with the intention that you are moving through these levels. The intention is that you are moving to level 4. You don't have to go to level 4 from zero. You go
That
through the steps.
that's an issue that I've seen a few times, is that people kind of say, right, I've decided I'm going to delegate over to you, and then that's it. And then like the person that's got the job's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. And the person that's giving it away is like, well, I hope you do a good job because I'm really good at this. And you end
Yes.
up with this kind of mismatch of things. I think you kind of levels here, they're very similar to the different styles in situational leadership. If anyone's
Mm.
come across that before, S1, 2, 3, 4, tell, sell, support, delegate, similar type of thing. For people that don't know what they're doing, will need more input than those that do know what
Yeah.
they're doing, and you can kind of gradually relax back from that.
So
But
if you're building out your leadership team, as you're adding in, these are the levels that you're going through. So ultimately, you kind of want everybody on your leadership team being at level 4. You have a conversation, everyone knows what they're doing, they go away and do it. But depending on their maturity, where you are in your life cycle, you are moving through these to ultimately get there. You're not going to pull together a management team or a leadership team and then go straight to 4.
I also had a team gainer who were with all great intentions. They were kind of stuck at one,
Oh,
and they
yes.
had a leadership team. They promoted them into leadership roles, and they were just directing them the whole way through.
Yes.
So it was like, right, now go do this. Now come back and tell me what you've done. Now go do
Yeah.
this. So in theory, they thought they were positioned as leaders of the business, but realistically they were just kind of workers, because the team had never kind of gone up this list or backed off a bit. They kind
Yeah.
of always kept at that bottom level. And what was fascinating was when they started moving up and backing away a little bit more, the leaders stepped in
Yes.
and showed that they could do it. They'd just never been given the chance before.
Exactly. And which is why delegation is like there's two parts to a delegation. You're the person who is delegating has a responsibility also over time to step back as well and allow people to flex their wings and do their thing. And the people who are being delegated to need to continue to grow and step up and be more and more capable. I'm just conscious of time now. So this is a good one. My second one, don't be guilty of drive-by delegations. That essentially is that you are walking through the office, you have a piece of paper in your hand, you drop it on someone's desk and you say, can you take care of that for me? And then off you go. It's like, you've not hit any of the what is it, by when, what's the result? So just bear that in mind. That's not delegation. That's a disaster.
Yeah.
So
And
more here to read.
I would throw into this as well. I think it's important to very early on realize that nobody else is you. Nobody else can do things the way that you do things, but there are other ways that things can be done. So when you delegate a piece of work out and it comes back and it's not how you would have done it,
Yes.
that's not necessarily that it's bad. Does it still achieve the outcome that you're wanting to achieve? So don't try and, I suppose, create perfection, small mini versions of you everywhere. It's letting other people kind of do it in their way.
Yes.
But again, I've seen that before as well. They're not as good at me as me at doing that particular thing. It's
Yeah.
like, well, you can't do that 1,000 times. You've
No.
only got so many hours in a day, so you have to let somebody else take that on. And what they've produced is pretty good. It's not like you would do it, but it's pretty good. And getting used to that can be a real unsticker.
And that's also your threshold of what you're saying is acceptable. So that 80% rule comes in. Actually, 80% most of the time is actually good enough based on the fact that it might not get done. So 80% is actually really good. And if you actually get tied to the outcome and not how you got to the outcome, that will also make things go quicker and easier. So let's just move through. Let me just go back. So if you've got the owner or the person at the hub, it's like how you are creating a leadership team. We've got the tools of which to maybe identify and have a language around what people's strengths are and what they're good at, and having a level of kind of respect and patience for one another as they kind of do it the way that they're wired to do it. Then as the person in the center is like, you've got to start to delegate off. So you've got to use the delegation things. You've got to start to go, right, well, if you're going to be in charge of the advisors or the proposition or whatever, let's pick the advisors. Let's say it's sales. It's like, right, well, if you're going to be in charge of sales, it's like, what do I want to see? How do I know things are on track? What are you going to report back in so I know that things are working well? That's the communication that needs to have happen. And so there's a structure. There's meetings, KPIs I've mentioned is a really good way of getting a nice little like snapshot of whether things are on track or not. Dashboards, more complicated, and clear decisions. So again, that goes back to your culture, but also like delegation levels of like, where does someone get to make the decisions, or where do they have the autonomy and responsibility? Anything else from your?
I was just going to say we are rapidly kind of coming to the end of our time today, and one of the slides that you'll see within the pack is around the kind of schedule area, structure for accountability. So this is how you can kind of keep on track of things without being overbearing on stuff. And it's our suggestion. We've seen this work well in numerous businesses, and it just brings a structure to the reporting process. So you're not kind of thinking, oh, I can't remember what that is, I'll just go and ask Dave or whatever, and then Dave got prepared and he has to go and find it and he's wasted an hour that he could be doing something else. If you have this kind of regular check-in and structure, it just makes life a whole lot easier. So feel free to pause here if you want to look in any more details at that.
I'm going to give you the flying version. So a weekly meeting is really important, irrespective of your size. So if you're really small, you do it all together. If you're bigger, departments should be doing it. You want a positive focus. What went well? Look, it's way too easy to go everything that didn't get done on the to-do list. There's nothing more that buoys the spirits and is a bit, of a cheerleading and finding out of all the stuff in your business that you actually are doing well, that did go according to plan. So don't forget to do that bit. Then there's any KPI reporting. So anything, metrics that you need to know where you're up to. You're going to identify any issues. So if there's any kind of pressing urgent matters that everyone needs to know, and how are you going to solve it? And then a nice little one just to check on what everyone's up to is, what is each individual's person's 3 crucial results for the next week? And then the following week you go back and go, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? And then you've got the next 3. The other one that I would say, irrespective of size, that you need to do is some kind of quarterly strategy meeting. If you're bigger, there's maybe more meat to this in terms of like strategy and being on track and bigger issues to talk about. If you're a little bit smaller, there are still things that you need to get clear on. It's like, what do they expect? What are you focusing on over the quarter? Where are you at sales wise? Where are you at cash wise? And what else is going on? And how do you keep that in everyone's crosshairs so that you're all pulling in the same direction? And then I think if you're slightly bigger, and you do have people, more than one person who's wearing all of those departmental hats, you would have a monthly management meeting where you create a pack. So you would have one section, which is grow it, which is all about your financials, your sales pipeline and your marketing, and there's metrics and reporting around that. And then run it is all the other areas of the business. So if you imagine that slide where we had all the departments, that's what you would cover off in this pack. And if you've got different people running those departments, they create the report and it gets compiled into one document that you read before the meeting, and then you all get to discuss it. So that's my whistle-top tour of some structure.
And if you do want any kind of frameworks for these or templates, then do get in touch. We've got a library we can, I'm sure we'd be happy to share along the way with you.
Yeah.
So as we kind of
wrapping
come
up,
to the end then of today's session, we'd like to, I suppose, challenge you all to have a think about what we've said today and think about it in the context of your business. Particularly, spend a bit of time, get a cup of coffee and just sit and write down one responsibility to redesign, not just delegate. So is there a better way of doing one of the core things within the firm? Try and think of a structural gap, something where there's a problem, there is a weakness, a limit, something that's not working properly that needs to be resolved. And also any dependencies, think about something you can get rid of. Just one thing where currently it's all dependent on you, and actually you can maybe push that to somebody else or remove that dependency by putting some structure in place around it. It's only sometimes when we pause and take a step back that we can see the bigger picture, because it's too easy to get lost in the weeds of everyday life. And it's that helicopter view of looking at your business as a whole entity, as if pretend you're a consultant for the day and you're consulting on this firm. What would you tell them to do differently? So I would strongly advocate taking a little bit of time to do that. Probably I would say once a quarter is a great time to just have that step back moment and go through things. Well, that brings us to the end of today's session, and thank you, Gaynor, for sharing your knowledge and experience. If there's one thing I think it's worth taking away from today, is that it's okay to have a team that runs without you. A business that's easy to run is easy to sell, and if the business runs without you, it's more stable when you leave and therefore more valuable to buyers. There can be a real personal journey on letting go of things. So I would encourage you all, rather than think about not being needed, think about moving from dependency to legacy. It's not you being at the center of everything, it's about what you will leave behind. Now, we will make the Leadership Dependency Scorecard available with this recording. That will help you assess where you are today in areas like decision ownership, client relationships, leadership capability and structure, as well as giving you some practical next steps. If today has made you think about where your business sits or what you might need to change, please do get in touch. We work with firms at all stages, so whether you're earlier on and maybe 10 years away from leaving, or whether actually you're thinking it's a lot closer than that, please do feel free to reach out and we'll help you build a leadership team within your business with the end in mind. And if you do know somebody else who will benefit from this session, please do feel free to share the replay with them. Thanks again for your time, and we'll hope to see you on another session soon. Thank you.